True awakening is not the destination we arrive at, but the eternal rebirth of the soul in each new moment of consciousness. This book, born from the pen of an unknown author yet deeply connected to universal truths, is a journey into inner awakening. Through its pages, you will explore the cycles of life and the depths of spiritual growth and the human capacity to transcend shadows towards a greater understanding of self and life's purpose. Each chapter is an invitation to discover the power of silence, the wisdom of time, and the importance of self-love as guides on the path to inner mastery. The author leads us on a deeply transformative journey, showing that true success is not measured by external factors, but by the stillness, wisdom, and authenticity we cultivate within ourselves. Prologue: The Cry of the Spirit, The Power of Faith in the Unknown. Author: Unknown. Chapter 1: The Call to Personal Awakening. Like an echo resonating in the deep caverns of being, the call to awakening is nothing more than an ancient voice lying deep within our soul, waiting to be heard. It is not a resounding shout or an urgent plea. Rather, it is a constant whisper, a gentle caress that brushes the most subtle fibers of our consciousness, inviting us to return to what we have always been but have forgotten in the course of life. In the deepest part of the dark night, when the whispers of the world quiet down and shadows unfold with greater clarity, the question that many fear to face arises: who am I before everything around me? And that question, seemingly simple, holds the key that opens the door to self-discovery. It is not an external discovery, but a pilgrimage into the depths of one's self. We often find ourselves caught in the entanglements of daily existence, like puppets moved by seemingly uncontrollable forces. Work, obligations, desires. Everything unfolds before us like a vast cloak that hides the true horizon. And yet, it is precisely in the midst of this chaos that the call begins to take shape. We first feel it as a discomfort, a slight unease deep in our chest, an inexplicable sense that something is missing, though we don't know exactly what. But it is in that void that the seed of awakening resides. The ancient and wise soul never stops whispering, even when our restless and noisy mind tries to silence it with 1,000 distractions. A threshold then opens, and he who has ears to hear can finally cross it. It is in that crossing, in that almost imperceptible transition, where the true journey towards mental mastery begins. We are no longer what we were, nor what we believed ourselves to be. The idea of identity that we had so carefully built over the years begins to crumble, like dry leaves falling in autumn. The inner voice, which before was merely a murmur, now rises with the force of a storm, reminding us that we are not mere actors in the theater of life, but conscious creators of every scene we choose to play. As awakening unfolds, we begin to recognize the great mirage in which we have lived. That dream of names, titles, and achievements that we believed were ours crumbles like a sandcastle before the wave of understanding. There is no place for masks here. Here, in this sacred ground of personal awakening, we come face to face with our naked essence. And as we look, we see something we had never clearly perceived before, a reflection not molded by time or circumstances, but by an eternal truth that has always been there, patiently waiting. There is no fanfare in this encounter, no external celebration. It is a silent, almost austere moment, but infinitely powerful. Awakening is not announced with trumpets or dazzling lights. It comes like a gentle breeze that, upon touching our spirit, transforms it forever. It invites us to release the unnecessary weight we have carried for so long and to walk lightly, free from the invisible chains that bind us to a limited version of ourselves. And in that walk, we discover that awakening is not an event, but a process, not an endpoint, but a continuous journey that unfolds with every step we take. Every moment becomes an opportunity to deepen, to refine our perception, and to align ourselves with that sacred flow that runs within us and around us. The distractions of the world lose their deceptive gleam, and what once seemed unattainable is revealed as something already present, waiting to be recognized. The awakened soul begins to remember. It remembers that there is no separation between who we are and who we aspire to be, that the infinite potential we have sought outside of ourselves has always been latent within us, like the sun that never stops shining behind the clouds. Our essence has never been diminished, only veiled by the illusions we have allowed to cover it. The call to personal awakening is, ultimately, the call to truth. It is the silent claim of authenticity over falsehood, of freedom over fear. And although this call may seem distant amidst the confusion of daily life, its power is relentless. It cannot be eternally ignored. Sooner or later, every soul must answer, and when it does, the true dance of life begins. A dance in which we no longer move to the rhythm of external expectations or old conditioning, but to the very rhythm of our deepest being. Every step, every gesture, every decision becomes a reflection of that inner connection, of that alignment with what is true within us. And in doing so, we discover that life itself, in all its vastness and mystery, is our field of creation, where inner discipline becomes the most powerful tool to manifest the greatness that has always been destined for us. Thus, we answer the call, becoming the architects of our own existence, aware that awakening is not a privilege of a few, but the inalienable right of every being inhabiting this vast universe. And as we walk this path of transformation, we realize that what truly matters is not the destination, but the journey. A journey that, in its purest essence, is a return home, to that home that has never ceased to be ours, where peace, clarity, and power await us with open arms. It is there that mastery begins, and it is there, in that deep silence of being, where we truly awaken. Awakening is, in its most intimate essence, a return to ancient wisdom, that which lies buried deep within our being and has been obscured by the shadows of fears, doubts, and external expectations. In this process, the mind, once tyrannical and dominant, begins to take its rightful place, that of a faithful servant of the heart. For it is in the heart, in that divine spark that lies at the center of our being, where true guidance resides, not in fragmented thoughts or in the reasons that logic tries to impose, but in that silent, eternal pulse that connects all that we are with the vast cosmos. As we delve deeper into awakening, a paradox emerges before us. The journey to mastery is not about acquiring more, but about letting go. It is not about accumulating knowledge or skills, but about shedding everything that is not essential, everything that does not resonate with the profound truth we are beginning to glimpse. And in that process of letting go, what emerges is a clarity that was previously unattainable. The awakened soul realizes that the desperate search for external answers has actually been a distraction. The answers are not out there, in books or in the teachings of others, however wise they may be. The answers are found in silence, in stillness, in the space that remains when we finally stop searching and simply allow the truth to reveal itself. It is here that the role of inner discipline becomes evident, not as a rigid and severe imposition, but as an act of devotion to ourselves. Discipline is not the whip that punishes, but the compass that guides us back to the center. It is the subtle force that keeps us aligned with our truth, even when the outside world tries to drag us back into chaos. But discipline, like everything in life, must be understood from a place of deep respect and reverence. It is not a tool of control, but of liberation, because it is through it that we learn to discern between what is fleeting and what is eternal. It teaches us to stand firm in the midst of storms, not to be carried away by the fluctuating currents of emotion or thought, but to keep our gaze fixed on that inner star that guides us through the darkness. The mind at first resists, clinging to its old patterns, its limiting beliefs, because that is what it knows. But the awakened soul no longer allows itself to be governed by those old habits. Gently but firmly, inner discipline begins to mold the mind, not through brute force, but through constancy and patience. It is a delicate work, like that of a gardener tending to his garden, lovingly pulling out the weeds that have grown for years and allowing the most beautiful and fragrant flowers to grow in their place. And then, one day, without warning, we realize that something has changed. The mind, which was once our tyrannical master, has been transformed into an ally. It no longer fights against us, but serves us faithfully, allowing us to access levels of clarity and understanding that were previously inaccessible. This is the true gift, a mind at peace, an open heart, and an unwavering will to live in alignment with our deepest truth. It is then that mastery ceases to be a distant ideal and becomes our daily reality. We no longer need to strive so hard to stay on the path, because the path has become part of us. We move with fluidity, with grace, knowing that every step we take is an expression of that truth we have found deep within our being. And although the outside world continues to spin at its own pace, although distractions and temptations remain present, they no longer have the same power over us. We have awakened, and in that awakening, we have discovered a freedom that goes beyond what words can express. It is a freedom born from the recognition that we are not victims of circumstance, but co-creators of our reality, that we are not here to simply survive, but to flourish, to manifest the highest potential of our being, And that potential is not conditioned by what the external world tells us, but by what our heart knows with certainty. Personal awakening is, therefore, the beginning of a new life, not a life without challenges, because challenges are an integral part of growth, but a life lived from a place of inner power, where every challenge is seen as an opportunity to delve deeper into our truth, to refine our mastery, and to get closer to that version of ourselves that has always been waiting to be revealed. This is the true meaning of answering the call to awakening. It is a commitment to our greatness, a commitment to life itself in all its complexity and beauty. And in doing so, we not only transform our own lives, but we become a beacon of light for those who are still trapped in darkness. For when one awakens, it inevitably helps others to awaken, and thus the circle of life expands, bringing more light, more love, and more truth to this world. And so, awakening becomes a gift not only for ourselves, but for all creation. Chapter 2. Awakening the Power of Self-Discipline. Like an ancient flame that never quite extinguishes, self-discipline lies deep within our being, waiting to be fanned. It is an ancestral force, forgotten by many, but always present, latent in the depths of the soul. It is discipline, that invisible thread that weaves the days and shapes destiny, the sublime art of honoring our inner commitments even when external circumstances conspire to divert us from our path. There are those who confuse self-discipline with the unholy rigor of sacrifice, believing it to be a kind of penance imposed upon oneself in the name of success. But those who think so have not understood the true purpose of discipline nor the gentleness with which it can be deployed. It is not the rod of punishment, but the golden key that opens the doors to freedom. Awakening the power of self-discipline is an act of sublime reverence for life itself, a profound recognition that the chaos that often reigns in our mind is nothing more than a veil covering the innate clarity we all possess. It is not a struggle, as many believe, but a surrender to the natural order of being. In its purest essence, self-discipline is an act of self-love, the highest of all, for it implies building an inner temple where every action is an offering to our divine essence. The modern world, with its incessant torrent of stimuli and distractions, has led us astray from this understanding. It has made us believe that discipline is a burden, something to be endured with great effort, when in reality it is the balm that heals our wounds and returns us to ourselves. To awaken self-discipline is to rediscover that inner power that allows us to stand firm even when the winds of life blow fiercely. This awakening does not happen overnight. It is a process that requires delicacy and patience, like nature gently sprouting after winter. At first, it may seem like a challenge, an effort that exhausts us, because we have been tamed by the immediacy, by the fleetingness that the modern world has offered us. But as we progress, self-discipline reveals its true face. It is not a yoke, but a harmonious dance between our purpose and our will. Imagine an ancient warrior standing on the battlefield, not with the intention to destroy, but to protect what is sacred. That warrior, before wielding his sword, spent years in the stillness of training, in the repetition of precise movements, refining every fiber of his being until every gesture became a natural extension of his will. That is self-discipline, the art of preparing in silence for the decisive moment, to face life not with fear, but with the certainty that one is ready for whatever comes. But the true warrior does not fight against the external world. His true battle is fought within himself, on the battlefield of the mind. He confronts the shadows of fear, laziness, and doubt. He confronts the whispers of temptation that invite him to stray from his path, to abandon his purpose. And yet, he stands firm, not because he is obligated, but because he knows that such steadfastness is the source of his freedom. Self-discipline, then, is the victory over oneself, the mastery over the inner forces that try to divert us from our truth. It is important to understand that self-discipline is not an external imposition. No one can force it upon another, and those who try to impose it from the outside are doomed to failure. Self-discipline must be born from a deep place of inner desire, from a conscious decision to honor what is true within us. It is a sacred pact between our present self and that higher self to which we aspire. Self-discipline is the art of building invisible bridges between our highest aspirations and our daily actions. It is not the rigid repetition of empty habits, but the constant expression of our will towards what is good, what is noble, what is just. Every day, upon waking, we make a choice, the choice to move towards our best version or to retreat into the comfort of the known. And although this choice may seem insignificant at the moment, It is actually the cornerstone upon which our entire life is built. In the awakening of self-discipline, we learn to love the process, not just the result. We learn to find beauty in repetition, to see the splendor in constant effort, because it is through that effort, that daily dedication, that we get closer and closer to the manifestation of our highest self. And in that approach, we discover something profoundly liberating. Self-discipline is not the end but the means. It is not the destination but the path that leads us to the greatest freedom we can know, the freedom to be who we truly are, without the chains of ego, without the ties of fear. The act of awakening self-discipline is a sacred ritual. It is not about grand gestures or heroic sacrifices. It is about the small daily acts that, performed with awareness and devotion, transform our lives. It is rising early to contemplate the silence of the morning, choosing the words with which we nourish our minds, caring for the body as a sacred temple. Each of these acts, though seemingly mundane, is a manifestation of that inner discipline that leads us beyond our limitations. And so, self-discipline becomes a beacon that illuminates our path. It guides us through dark days and uncertain nights, reminding us that we are the architects of our own destiny. It teaches us that true power does not reside in external circumstances, but in our ability to respond to them with integrity, clarity, and firmness. As this power awakens within us, we begin to see the world with new eyes. Difficulties no longer overwhelm us. We face them with the serenity of one who knows that every challenge is an opportunity to further refine our discipline, to further strengthen our will. Temptations lose their appeal because we have learned to savor the sweetness of self-discipline, that feeling of inner stillness that comes when we have fulfilled what we have promised ourselves. And so, day by day, step by step, we transform. We cease to be victims of circumstances to become masters of our own lives. Self-discipline, which at first seemed like a burden, reveals itself as the greatest gift we can give ourselves, because through it we access true freedom, the freedom to own ourselves, the freedom to live in harmony with our essence, the freedom to manifest our greatness in the world. It is then, and only then, that we understand that self-discipline is not an imposition but a choice we make every day with every thought, with every word, with every action. And by making that choice, we awaken the power that has been dormant within us, waiting for the moment to be claimed. Thus, we awaken the power of self-discipline, not as a burden, but as a declaration of love for ourselves. And in that awakening, we discover that what we are truly doing is awakening to our true nature. Beings of infinite capacity, of unlimited potential, created to manifest the highest expression of life in everything we do. Awakening the power of self-discipline is, ultimately, an act of creation. It is a delicate chisel that, in expert hands, sculpts a masterpiece from the unformed block of our life. But unlike the artist who works on stone or marble, our work is infinitely more subtle, for the material we mold is the very essence of our will, that inner fire that can illuminate or consume us if we do not handle it with wisdom. And so, with every sunrise, with every decision we make, a little more of this magnificent work we are creating is revealed. Self-discipline then ceases to be a rigid tool and transforms into a means to polish our soul, like gold refined through fire. Every day becomes an opportunity to chisel with greater precision, to refine with greater devotion, knowing that the result of our work is nothing less than the revelation of our purest essence. This process, however, is not without challenges. In awakening this power, we often confront our own demons, those parts of us that prefer the comfort of habit to the discomfort of change, the fear of failure, persistent doubt, the desire for immediate gratification. All these are obstacles that arise along the way, but none of them hold real power over us, unless we grant it. We discover that the true enemy is not in the external world, but in our own mind, that mind which has been conditioned for years by limiting beliefs, by repeated patterns that have kept us stuck in a cycle of inertia. But in awakening self-discipline, we begin to dissolve those conditionings, not with brute force, but with the gentle perseverance of a firm and determined will. It is like water that, over time, erodes even the hardest rock, not by its violence but by its constancy. It is here that true mastery emerges, in self-control, in the ability to remain faithful to our vision even when the winds of change try to divert us. And yet, this mastery is not cold or dispassionate. It is, instead, warm and deeply human, because self-discipline is not a path of deprivation, but a path of fullness. It teaches us to nourish ourselves at a deep level, to take care of ourselves in a way that transcends immediate rewards and connects us with something more lasting and meaningful. Every time we choose self-discipline, we are reaffirming our commitment to our own greatness. We are saying that we are more than our momentary impulses, more than our doubts and fears. We are remembering that we are beings created to manifest the divine in the mundane, to bring to life that which is truly sacred within us. And in this remembering, in this constant reaffirmation, we discover that self-discipline leads us not only to external success but to a deep inner peace. We are no longer slaves to our fluctuating desires. We have learned to govern our passions instead of being governed by them, and in that mastery, we find a serenity that no external circumstance can disturb. Self-discipline is, ultimately, an act of freedom, because by mastering our lower inclinations, we liberate our higher faculties. We become capable of acting from a place of conscious awareness, instead of reacting from a place of blind impulse. And that freedom, that ability to act with intention and purpose, is the true gift that self-discipline offers us. As this power awakens within us, we begin to see its reflection in all areas of our lives. We no longer feel fragmented, divided between what we want to be and what we are. We become whole, complete, and every aspect of our lives begins to align with that integrity. Decisions that once seemed difficult or painful become clear, because we are acting from a place of true connection with ourselves. This is the alchemy of self-discipline. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, the common into the sublime. And the more we delve into its practice, the more we realize that there is nothing in our lives that is out of our reach. Not because we have absolute control over external circumstances, but because we have learned to control the only thing that truly matters, our own mind, our own self. And it is here that the true power of self-discipline resides, in the ability to transform ourselves, to be the creative force behind our own lives. We are not mere spectators on this journey. We are the architects of our own destiny, the authors of our own story. This awakening is not a single event, but a continuous process. Every day presents us with a new opportunity to practice self-discipline, to refine our skills, to deepen our mastery. And in that process, we discover something profoundly liberating, that self-discipline is not an end in itself, but a means to access a life of greater meaning, greater purpose, greater truth. It is then that we understand that we have been awakening not only to self-discipline but to our own greatness. Because in the end, self-discipline is nothing more than the vehicle through which we manifest our true essence in the world. It is the bridge that takes us from where we are to where we are meant to be. And on that path, on that journey of transformation, we find not only success but also fullness, peace, and true freedom. This is the power of self-discipline, and by awakening it, we awaken to all that we are and all that we are called to be. Chapter 3: Breaking Mental Barriers, the Art of Visualizing the Future. Like ancient ruins standing in defiance of centuries, our mental barriers have been erected over time, blocking access to the infinite horizons of our existence. They are invisible walls built with the bricks of our limiting beliefs, our unconfessed fears, and the voices of those who, in the past, defined our capacity to dream. These barriers, though intangible to the eye, are as solid as granite, and yet, in the mystery of the human mind, they are also as ephemeral as the wind, waiting to be dissolved by the breeze of a new vision. The art of visualizing the future is not a mere exercise of imagination, but a subtle alchemy, a delicate weaving between what is and what has not yet been, but already exists in the immaterial plane of our consciousness. It is the sacred act of turning our thoughts into a mirror that reflects the future we wish to manifest. However, this art, like everything in life, requires practice and dedication, for the capricious and wild mind has been trained for years to inhabit the shadows of the past and the uncertainties of the present. The first step in this sacred endeavor is to understand that the barriers that stand in our mind are not real, but ghosts of time that we have allowed to dwell in our thoughts. They feed on our doubts, strengthen with our insecurities, and are erected with every thought that says, "I can't." And although these barriers may seem unbreakable, the truth is that they are as fragile as ice in the midday sun, waiting for the warm touch of a new belief to dissolve them forever. Visualization, in its purest essence, is the tool that allows us to break through those barriers. It is a bridge that connects the present with the future, a window through which we can glimpse not what we are, but what we are destined to be. But for this art to be effective, We must learn to see beyond superficial appearances and to immerse ourselves deeply in the vibration of what we wish to create. Imagine for a moment that you are standing before a vast ocean. The large and powerful waves represent the thoughts that rise and fall on the shore of your mind. The ever-present temptation is to be carried away by the tumult of these waves, believing that they are the ultimate reality. But visualization teaches us to see beyond the swell, beyond the superficial currents, and to contemplate the tranquil depths of the sea, where the limitless potential of our imagination lies. In these depths, where the noise of the world subsides, is where the true work of visualization begins. Here, it is not enough to vaguely imagine a desired future. It is necessary to inhabit that future with every fiber of our being, to see it not as a distant dream, but as an already existing reality, waiting to be experienced on the physical plane. Every detail must be lived, every sensation must be felt, not as a distant promise, but as a present lived on another level of our consciousness. This art is not a mere exercise of the mind. It is a profound communion with the spirit. It is a call to the source of our very being, a reminder that we are the architects of our destiny, capable of designing every stone, every step, every path we are to travel. And to do so, we must first break the invisible chains that bind us to the limitations imposed by time and space. Breaking mental barriers is not an act of force, but of surrender. It is the act of releasing the beliefs that have kept us small, the stories we have told ourselves about what is possible and what is not. For in the vast universe of the mind, there are no limits beyond those we ourselves have created. The art of visualization invites us to abandon those limits, to let go of the need to know how things will happen, and to trust in the infinite wisdom of the spirit that guides our every step. The process of visualization is not a magic formula that instantly brings everything we desire to life. It is an art that requires patience, devotion, and above all, a deep faith in what we cannot see with our physical eyes, but what we feel with every fiber of our being. It is the art of keeping the vision firm in the mind, even when the outside world seems to contradict it, knowing that the mind, when aligned with the heart, has the power to create realities that transcend logic and reason. But what are we really visualizing? It's not just the manifestation of a specific desire, although that may be part of the process. What we are ultimately visualizing is a higher version of ourselves. Visualization is the act of connecting with that higher self that already exists in the subtle realms and bringing that version of ourselves into the present reality. Every time we visualize, we are remembering who we are in our purest essence, and we are inviting that essence to manifest in the physical world. For this art to be truly effective, we must learn to trust what we cannot see. The mental barriers that tell us something is impossible are simply echoes of an old paradigm, a way of thinking that no longer has a place in the mind of a being who has awakened to their true power. Breaking those barriers is not an easy task, because they are deeply rooted in our psyche, but every time we choose to visualize the future from a place of love and faith, instead of fear and doubt, we are weakening those barriers. We are tearing down the walls that have held us prisoner in a limited reality. Visualizing the future is an art, but it is also an act of courage, because in doing so, we are challenging collective beliefs about what is possible. We are choosing to see the world not as it is, but as it can be. And in that choice, we are claiming our inalienable right to be the co-creators of our reality. We are not subject to external circumstances, to the expectations of others, or to the limitations that the world has imposed on us. We are at all times free to choose our destiny, to visualize a future that reflects our greatness, and to manifest it in the present with every thought, every word, and every action. Thus, by breaking mental barriers and practicing the art of visualization, we begin to discover that the future is not something that happens by chance. It is something that we are creating moment by moment with the strength of our imagination, with the clarity of our vision, and with the unwavering faith that we are the architects of our own destiny. The art of visualizing the future is not then a game of illusions. It is the most powerful tool we possess to transform our lives, to rise beyond the limitations of the mind, and to bring into existence the highest possibilities of our being. For in each of us lies a creator, a visionary, a being capable of imagining the impossible and making it real. And when we learn to visualize the future from that place of power, no mental barrier can resist the force of our vision. Visualizing the future is a sacred dance between the tangible and the intangible, a convergence of invisible forces that propels us to see beyond appearances. But this dance is not just a mind game. It is a pact we seal with the divine, a commitment to allow what is not yet visible in the material world to first take shape in the deepest recesses of our consciousness. By breaking mental barriers, we free ourselves from the narrow confines that time and space have drawn for us, and we begin to move to the rhythm of the infinite. This process, however, requires relentless courage. It is not solely about imagining, but about feeling with absolute conviction that what we visualize is already part of our reality, even if it has not yet manifested on the physical plane. The key to unlocking this power lies in our emotional being, in our ability to align ourselves with the vibration of what we desire, because the mind alone can be barren ground, but when the heart unites with the vision, the most solid barriers begin to crack. In ancient teachings, the wise reminded us that everything that exists in the physical world was first conceived in the realm of ideas. Every great creation, every monument erected, every innovation that has transformed human life, began as a simple thought, a spark in the mind of someone who dared to dream. And yet, it is not enough to dream. We must infuse life into that dream, nurture it as if it were a garden that needs our constant attention to flourish. The art of visualization is precisely that, a loving cultivation of the seeds of the future. But not all seeds are fertile. Some are contaminated by the limiting beliefs we have inherited from past generations. These beliefs act as thorns that suffocate the blooming of our most sublime visions. I'm not good enough. Success is for others, not for me. The world is a hostile place and I am powerless to change it. These thoughts, which have taken deep root in our subconscious mind, are the true barriers that prevent us from visualizing a radiant and expansive future. To break these barriers, it is necessary to uproot them with a strength and determination that can only come from a deep desire for change. It is a work that requires courage, because it means confronting the shadows that dwell in our psyche, the same shadows that have kept us in a state of stagnation for so long. But once we begin this process, once we begin to clear the ground of our mind, we discover that beneath the weeds, the soil is fertile and ready to receive new seeds, seeds of unlimited possibilities. Visualizing the future is, therefore, an act of faith. Faith in what is not yet visible, but which is already present in the field of infinite potentialities. It is the certainty that, by keeping our vision clear and aligned with our highest emotions, the universe will move in our favor, weaving the circumstances and events necessary for our vision to materialize. We don't always know how it will happen, but it is not our role to question it. Our only duty is to remain faithful to the vision, even when the outside world seems to crumble around us. This art requires infinite patience, because time, as we conceive it in our limited perception, is only an illusion. What we are visualizing already exists on the plane of the unmanifest, and it is only a matter of time before it crosses the threshold into the material world. But that crossing cannot be forced, it must be allowed. And to allow it, we must let go of control, abandon attachment to immediate results, and trust that everything is happening according to a divine order that often escapes our understanding. Mental barriers, though powerful in their ability to restrict us, are not invincible. Every time we choose to visualize a different future, every time we allow our imagination to flow freely, we are weakening those barriers. And although the process may seem slow at first, it is cumulative. With each visualization, with each act of faith, the barriers crumble a little more until finally, one day, they disappear completely. At that moment, we experience a freedom that we had only imagined before. We realize that the limitations we had accepted as real were nothing more than illusions, shadows projected by a fearful mind. And by dispelling those shadows, we discover a new horizon, vast and full of possibilities, where everything we desire is within our reach, waiting to be claimed. Visualizing the future is, in essence, an act of co-creation with the universe. It is a reminder that we are divine beings capable of molding reality according to our highest aspirations. And although the path to mastery in this art may be full of challenges, each of those challenges is an opportunity to delve deeper into our faith, to strengthen our vision, and to move forward with greater confidence towards the future we have already created in our mind. This is the power that lies in the art of visualizing the future, a power that, once awakened, cannot be stopped. Because when we learn to see beyond mental barriers, when we connect with the vastness of our being, we discover that there is nothing we cannot achieve, no dream too big, no desire too high. Everything we are capable of visualizing, we are capable of manifesting, because ultimately, the only barrier that truly exists is the one we create in our own mind, and once we break it, the future we have dreamed becomes our lived reality. Chapter 4. The Personal Brand, Reflecting Your Inner Success to the Outer World. From the beginning of time, human beings have felt the need to leave their mark on the world. It is not simply a desire to be remembered, but a primal urge to express outwardly what burns intensely within. It is the silent echo of an ancestral call that impels the soul to manifest, to give form and substance to its deepest essence. This imprint, this indelible mark we leave, is none other than our personal brand. But what is a brand if not the faithful reflection of the inner flame that never extinguishes? The personal brand is not a superficial construct, meticulously designed to impress those around us. It is, instead, the crystallization of our being, the mirror where the world can glimpse our truth, that truth that cannot be hidden behind titles or material possessions. What we manifest outwardly is the natural result of what we cultivate within ourselves. Thus, the personal brand becomes the emblem of our inner success, a silent proclamation of the victory we have achieved over ourselves. On this path to mastery, we discover that true success is not that which is measured by the approving glances of others, nor by the fleeting praises the world offers us. Authentic success is born from a much deeper, more sacred place. It is the triumph of having conquered our own shadows, of having silenced the voices of fear and doubt, and of having allowed our inner light to shine in all its splendor. Success, then, is not something that is pursued, it is something that is reflected. And what we reflect in the world is invariably a mirror of our inner state. If our soul is at peace, if our actions are aligned with our highest values, then our personal brand will be a beacon that illuminates not only our own path, but also that of those around us. It will not be necessary to loudly proclaim our achievements, for these will be evident in the serenity of our presence, in the integrity of our decisions, in the depth of our words. The modern world, however, has distorted the concept of personal brand, turning it into a tool of vanity, a showcase where superficial achievements and carefully constructed masks are displayed. But the true personal brand cannot be born from artificiality. It cannot be created in a marketing workshop or molded by the expectations of others. The authentic brand emanates from the depths of our soul, like pure water springing from a hidden mountain spring. It is the result of an internal process of refinement, of tireless discipline that leads us to polish our being until our essence shines effortlessly. This refinement is neither a simple nor a quick task. It demands from us an unwavering commitment to our truth. An iron will not stray from the path we have chosen, even when the temptations of the outside world invite us to do so. The personal brand, in its purest form, is the reflection of that inner struggle, of that constant work we do to remain faithful to who we are and not to what others expect of us. Each of us is a unique being, with a story to tell, a light to share, and our personal brand is the vehicle through which that light is projected into the world. It is not about imposing our presence on others or seeking recognition or applause. It is rather about allowing our authenticity to speak for itself, to live in such a way that our life becomes a silent testament to what it means to live with purpose, with integrity, with love. By building our personal brand, we are not simply molding an image, we are creating a legacy. And that legacy is not composed of our words or our visible achievements, but of the subtle yet powerful impact we leave on the hearts of those we encounter. It is in those moments, in those seemingly insignificant interactions, where our personal brand reveals itself most clearly, because ultimately, we are not remembered for what we say, but for how we make others feel, for the energy we leave behind. Inner success is reflected to the outer world not through force or imposition, but through the coherence between who we are inside and what we manifest in our actions. There is no room for dissonance in this process, because authenticity cannot be faked. And when our personal brand is aligned with our deepest truth, it becomes an irresistible force, capable of transforming not only our own lives, but also those who are touched by our light. Imagine an ancient tree, with deep roots and a robust trunk, standing majestically in the middle of a vast landscape. This tree does not need to strive to be seen. Its presence imposes itself, not by its size or its external beauty, but by the solidity of its roots, by the invisible force that sustains it from within. In the same way, our personal brand does not need to be promoted or adorned with artifices. If our roots are deep, if our internal foundation is solid, then our presence will speak for itself, without the need for words. And so, reflecting on our personal brand, we realize that it is not something we can build from the outside in. It is an inverse process, It is the natural expression of our inner being that flows outward, like a river effortlessly running towards the sea. We cannot force this process or rush it. We must allow it to emerge naturally, at its own pace, guided by our inner evolution. But we must not forget that this process requires constant attention, like a gardener tending to his plants with care and dedication. It is not enough to have conquered our shadows once. We must remain vigilant. We must continue refining our being so that our personal brand remains a faithful reflection of our inner success. Because, like everything in life, our personal brand is not static. It is a dynamic reflection of our continuous evolution, of our constant growth towards ever higher levels of consciousness and authenticity. Thus, looking to the future, we understand that our personal brand is not something we simply leave behind as an immutable legacy. It is a constant flow, a dance between who we are and who we are destined to be. And as long as we remain faithful to our inner truth, that personal brand will become a beacon that illuminates our path and that of those who accompany us on this sacred journey towards inner mastery. Ultimately, our personal brand is the living testimony of our inner success, the manifestation of the greatness that resides in each of us, waiting to be revealed to the world. It is not an external creation, but an emanation of our deepest essence, a reflection of the victory we have achieved over ourselves and that now shines in all its splendor, radiating light, truth, and love towards the vast horizon of our existence. This personal brand, which stands as the invisible standard of our presence in the world, is not intended to be a symbol of conquest over others, but a testament to sovereignty over our own being. It is the echo of a life lived in balance between who we are and what we offer. Like a subtle breeze that requires no force to be felt, our brand unfolds without noise or grandiosity, but with a deep resonance that impacts all who come into contact with it. We live in times where exposure seems to be the golden rule, where lives are displayed like showcases full of trophies, while the true content is hidden behind carefully crafted masks. But what is not revealed to the world is that brands forged from a place of superficiality, however brilliant they may seem, are fragile and ephemeral. They crumble at the first breath of adversity because they lack deep foundations. In contrast, a personal brand born from genuine connection with our inner self, nourished by our authenticity and strengthened by our self-discipline, is immune to the ravages of time and criticism. It does not disintegrate under external pressure because its source is rooted in the eternal. By building our personal brand, we are not just creating an impression for the present. We are sowing the seeds of a legacy that will transcend our lives. This legacy is not measured in visible monuments or statues erected in our honor, but in the souls we touch, in the hearts we inspire, in the energy we leave behind like a luminous trail that others can follow. It is a masterpiece that will never be completely finished, because as long as we continue to evolve, our brand will continue to evolve with us, refining itself, purifying itself, revealing new facets of our truth. Imagine for a moment that life itself is a vast, blank canvas stretched out before us, and that each of our thoughts, each of our actions, is a brushstroke that shapes a unique and unrepeatable work of art. This work, which in its creation is often invisible to others, is slowly revealed as we progress on our path. Every step we take, every challenge we face and overcome, adds a new nuance, a new color to this infinite canvas. Our personal brand is the visible manifestation of this inner work, the outward expression of what we have created within ourselves. But there is something even deeper we must understand about personal branding. It is not simply a reflection of our inner success, but also a vehicle for transformation. Just as we shape our brand shapes the world around us. It is a catalyst, an agent of change that can inspire, motivate, and uplift others. By living in coherence with our truth, by fully embodying our purpose, our personal brand becomes a living force that not only defines us but also impacts collective reality. This transformative power of the personal brand is not exercised through force, but through presence. It is the same presence emanating from a wise elder who, sitting in silence, radiates such profound serenity and wisdom that his mere being affects all who surround him. He does not need to speak, he does not need to proclaim his wisdom, because his very being is a manifestation of that wisdom. In the same way, our personal brand, when aligned with our inner truth, speaks for itself. We do not need to make grand statements or strive to impress others. Our presence itself is enough. It is a presence that calms, guides, illuminates. And this presence is not something that can be manufactured or imitated. It is the result of years of inner work, of a constant commitment to truth, of a discipline that has allowed us to refine our being until it shines with its own light. This is the true personal brand, the one that cannot be destroyed or altered by external forces, because it does not depend on anything external. It is a reflection of our eternal essence, of that immutable core that exists beyond circumstances and appearances. Looking ahead, we realize that our personal brand is not merely an adornment we carry with us, it is the imprint we leave on the world. And that imprint is not the result of what we do, but of what we are. It is not about the titles we have accumulated or the possessions we have acquired, but about the quality of our presence, the depth of our authenticity, the purity of our intention. The true personal brand is not something that can be consciously created in the common sense of the word. It is not something we design or plan in advance. It is something that arises naturally as we live in alignment with our deepest truth. And the more faithful we are to that truth, the more coherent our actions are with our values, the more powerful our brand will be. It will become a beacon of light that others can follow, not because we sought it, but because our very presence illuminates the way. This is the true secret of the personal brand. It is not a monument erected in stone, but a current of energy that continues to flow long after we are gone. It is the visible manifestation of an inner success that cannot be measured in worldly terms because it transcends time and space. It is the living testimony of a life lived with purpose, with integrity, with love. And in the end, when we look back, we will not measure our success by the applause we received or by the trophies we won, but by the depth of our brand, by the number of lives we touched, by the light we radiated. Because in the end, what matters most is not what we achieved, but who we became in the process. And our personal brand will be the eternal reflection of that inner transformation, the legacy we leave to the world as a reminder that, ultimately, true success is born from the soul and projected into the infinite. Chapter 5. Beyond Fear. Facing Failures with Courage. In the vast theater of life, where every soul plays its role with uncertainty, fear is a constant companion, lurking in the darkest corners of our mind, waiting for the opportune moment to manifest itself. It is a persistent shadow, an echo from the past that seeps into our present and whispers that failure is a condemnation, an indelible mark that locks us in the shackles of regret. And yet, behind this dark shadow, there is a deeper truth. Fear, far from being our enemy, is the teacher who invites us to grow, to awaken our dormant courage, to look directly at what we fear most, and in that act, discover our true strength. Fear, when not faced, becomes an invisible barrier that limits our movements, our decisions, our ability to dream. It manifests as a voice that tells us we are not good enough, that failure is a wound that will never heal, that our efforts are destined for emptiness. But this voice is not the voice of truth. It is the voice of a past we have not left behind, of beliefs we have inherited without questioning them, of past failures we have allowed to define who we are. And while these shadows may seem imposing, they have no power to dominate us, unless we grant it. Facing failures with courage is not an act of denial or a rejection of mistakes made. It is not about ignoring falls or pretending we don't feel fear. Courage does not lie in the absence of fear, but in the ability to move forward despite it. It is in that delicate balance, where we feel the weight of fear on our shoulders but decide to walk anyway, that the true strength of being emerges. And at that moment, what once seemed an insurmountable obstacle begins to dissolve before the light of our determination. There is immense power in failure, although society has painted it as a monster to be avoided at all costs. We have been taught to fear it, to see it as the end of our dreams, as a definitive judgment on our worth. But if we look closer, if we observe failure with the eyes of an alchemist seeking to transform lead into gold, we discover that every mistake, every fall, is actually an opportunity in disguise. Failure reveals what we still need to learn, shows us the cracks in our armor, and in that revelation, offers us the possibility to repair them, to strengthen ourselves, to become stronger and wiser versions of ourselves. The fear of failure is, in essence, the fear of vulnerability. We fear being exposed, we fear others seeing our weaknesses, we fear not meeting expectations, both our own and others. But in that fear, we forget that vulnerability is the seed of transformation. When we allow the fear of failure to paralyze us, we close the doors to the possibility of growing, of discovering what we are truly capable of. By facing our failures with courage, we give ourselves the opportunity to be reborn from our own ashes, stronger, wiser, more complete. Throughout the centuries, the great souls who have left an indelible mark on history were not those who avoided failure, but those who embraced it with courage. Each of their falls was a stepping stone to their greatness, every stumble a lesson that brought them closer to their destiny. And it is in that persistence, in that ability to rise again and again, that the true measure of success is found, because success is not the absence of failures, but the sum of our victories over them. Imagine for a moment that failure is a mirror that does not reflect our imperfections to humiliate us, but to show us what we can still improve, what we still need to transform within ourselves. Looking into that mirror, we see not only our wounds, but also our ability to heal them. We see not only our weaknesses, but also our strength to overcome them. And in that reflection, we begin to understand that failure is not an enemy to be feared, but an ally that drives us to discover our true greatness. Courage, then, is the key that opens the door to that deeper understanding. It is not a noisy bravado or a haughty arrogance, but an inner stillness, a silent certainty that no matter what happens, we are capable of facing any challenge life presents us. It is a confidence in our ability to learn, adapt, and grow. And in that confidence, we find the freedom to pursue our dreams without fear of failure, knowing that even if we fall, every fall is one more step on our path to mastery. But courage does not emerge overnight. It is a muscle we must exercise, a flame we must fan with every act of courage, no matter how small. Every time we face a fear, however insignificant it may seem, we are strengthening that flame, we are building the foundation upon which our greatness is built. And the more we feed that flame, the brighter it becomes, until it finally illuminates even the deepest shadows of our being. Life, in its infinite wisdom, presents us with failure not as a punishment, but as a gift that challenges us to go beyond what we thought possible, that invites us to expand our boundaries, that shows us that true courage does not consist in avoiding falls, but in rising again and again until the fall no longer has power over us. In this process of transformation, we begin to see failure in a new light. We no longer see it as a sign of our inadequacy, but as a reminder of our infinite capacity to learn, to adapt, to evolve. And in that recognition, we find a strength that goes beyond what we ever imagined, a strength that propels us to move forward even when the path seems impossible, a strength that reminds us that true success is not measured by how many times we fall, but by how many times we rise. As we progress on this journey of self-discovery, we realize that the fear of failure is just an illusion, a mental barrier that we can dismantle with every act of courage. And the more we delve into that courage, the freer we become, free from fear, free from judgment, free from the external expectations that once chained us. And in that freedom, we discover that true mastery is not about avoiding failure, but about embracing it as an integral part of our path to greatness. Chapter 6. The Secret of Perseverance, Overcoming Mental and Emotional Fatigue. Along life's journey, every soul, without exception, eventually faces a silent enemy that insinuates itself in the darkest moments: fatigue. It is not merely the tiredness that is cured by a night's rest, but a deeper fatigue, rooted in the fibers of the mind and soul, a heaviness that seems to have no end. It is mental and emotional fatigue, an invisible weight that makes us stumble, that clouds the clarity of our purpose, and that, if not wisely addressed, can lead us to abandon the dreams that once were so vivid within us. Perseverance, often glorified as the fire that never goes out, as an unbreakable force that burns ceaselessly, is not always so resplendent. Sometimes, it reduces to a barely perceptible ember, hidden beneath the ashes of discouragement and doubt. But it is precisely in those moments when fatigue seems insurmountable, when our strength seems to have run out, that the true secret of perseverance is revealed, the ability to continue not because we have infinite energy, but because we have learned to find our strength in places where we had not looked before. Mental and emotional fatigue does not arise from nothing. It is the result of years of accumulated effort, of responsibilities that pile up on our shoulders, of expectations that seem never to cease. It is the price we pay for our devotion to progress, for our constant pursuit of perfection. But in that pursuit, we often forget a fundamental truth. We are not machines. We are not designed to move forward tirelessly. We are deeply sensitive beings and, as such, we need the balance between effort and rest, between advance and pause. To persevere does not mean never stopping. It does not mean pushing to the point of breaking. True perseverance understands the need for pause, the importance of silence, of temporary retreat to recharge our energies. The secret of perseverance does not lie in continuous strength, but in the wisdom of knowing when to stop to contemplate the landscape, to reflect on the journey traveled, and to remember why we started our journey in the first place. In those moments of fatigue, when the mind seems to be a barren desert and the heart feels empty, is where we find the opportunity to reconnect with something greater than ourselves. Because perseverance is not just an act of will, it is an act of faith. Faith that, despite the tiredness, despite the doubts that assail us in the darkest hours, the purpose that drives us is greater than any obstacle we encounter along the way. And that faith, that belief in something deeper than logic or reason, is what allows us to keep going when all external signals invite us to give up. The secret of perseverance also lies in our ability to embrace imperfection. Mental and emotional fatigue often arises when we have imposed unattainable expectations on ourselves, when we believe that we must be perfect in every moment, in every task, in every aspect of our lives. But perfection is nothing more than an illusion, a shadow that always escapes our grasp. And the more we pursue it, the further we move away from true peace and satisfaction, which can only be found in the acceptance of our humanity. Overcoming fatigue is not an act of brute force. It is not a matter of gritting our teeth and pushing through the pain. It is an act of tenderness towards ourselves, of understanding that there are times when we must let go of the weight we carry, even for a brief moment, to catch our breath, to remember that, although the path is long and arduous, we are not alone on it. True perseverance is not fed by stubbornness, but by self-love and the recognition of our limitations. It is in those moments of pause, in those breaths we allow ourselves amidst fatigue, where the soul finds the strength to move forward. Because perseverance is not a straight line, it is a dance between effort and rest, between advance and reflection. And in that dance, we discover that tiredness is not our enemy, but our ally, reminding us of the need to balance our forces, to take care of ourselves, to honor our process, even when we are not moving at the speed we would like. When mental and emotional fatigue threatens to stifle our inner flame, it is important to remember that perseverance does not mean resisting everything without giving in. Sometimes, the greatest display of perseverance is the ability to stop, to allow the murky waters of our mind to settle so that clarity can return. In those moments of stillness, of inner silence, is where we rediscover our purpose, where we reconnect with the inexhaustible source of energy that resides deep within our being, a source that is not depleted by physical or mental effort, because it does not come from us, but from something greater, something divine. The secret of perseverance, then, is to learn to listen to that inner voice that guides us every step of the way. It is to learn to trust the process, even when it seems like we are stuck in immobility. It is to understand that fatigue, although uncomfortable, is part of the natural cycle of growth, and that only by accepting our own fluctuations, our falls and recoveries, can we move towards true inner mastery. There is no shame in fatigue. There is no dishonor in stopping to rest. Perseverance is not a race against time, but a patient march towards a greater purpose. And every time we stop to replenish our strength, we are honoring that purpose. We are taking care of the inner flame so that it can continue to burn brightly when we need it most. Ultimately, overcoming mental and emotional fatigue is not a matter of willpower, but of wisdom. The wisdom of recognizing that we are constantly changing beings, that we cannot maintain infinite intensity without exhausting ourselves, but that in those moments of rest, in those necessary pauses, we are cultivating the energy that will allow us to continue. Perseverance is not a river that flows without interruptions. It is a cycle of expansion and contraction, of effort and recovery. And in that cycle, in that natural rhythm, we find the key to moving beyond fatigue towards a state of balance and renewed strength. Perseverance is not measured by how many obstacles we have overcome, but by our ability to remain faithful to our purpose, even in the darkest moments, even when everything seems to be against us. It is an act of faith in ourselves, in our ability to keep going, not because we are tireless, but because we have learned to respect our own rhythm, to listen to the wisdom of our body and mind, and to move forward with patience and love towards the destiny that awaits us beyond fatigue. Chapter 7. Rebuilding Confidence. The Inner Rebirth. There comes a moment in every human being's life when confidence, that delicate pillar supporting our existence, seems to crumble into 1,000 fragments. It is not a resounding collapse, but a slow fading, an almost imperceptible erosion that day by day empties our faith in ourselves and in the world around us. It can be the result of betrayal, a profound failure, or the accumulation of small defeats that, without us realizing, have undermined the roots of our inner strength. And yet, it is in those moments of greatest darkness where the true seed of rebirth lies hidden, waiting to be discovered and cultivated with patience and devotion. Rebuilding confidence is neither a linear process nor an easy path to tread. It is a task that demands total surrender, a willingness to confront the parts of ourselves we have preferred to ignore, the fears we have tried to hide behind layers of rationalization and self-defense. It is a deeply personal process, because the confidence we seek is not based on the promises of others, but on the certainty residing deep within our being, in that divine spark that never extinguishes, though at times it may seem covered by the dust of disillusionment. Inner rebirth begins with the acceptance of our fragility. In a society that glorifies strength and invulnerability, admitting our vulnerability feels like an act of rebellion, a challenge to the norms imposed upon us from outside. But it is precisely in that acceptance that the true process of reconstruction begins. By recognizing that we are imperfect beings, capable of falling, failing, erring, we open the door to a new way of being, a more authentic way, more aligned with our true essence. The act of rebuilding confidence is similar to the work of an artisan who, with skillful hands and a patient heart, takes the broken fragments of a vase and joins them together again, not with the intention of hiding the cracks, but of beautifying them. In some ancient cultures, like in the Japanese art of kintsugi, broken ceramic pieces were repaired using gold, creating a new and unique work of art from what was once destroyed. So too is the process of rebuilding confidence. We do not try to return to who we were before, but we allow ourselves to be reborn as something new, something stronger, wiser, more beautiful, precisely because of our scars. The confidence that emerges from this process is not a naive confidence that expects the world to always be benevolent or that people will never disappoint us. It is a confidence rooted in the understanding that no matter what happens, we will always be able to get back up. It is a confidence that does not depend on external circumstances, but on a deep faith in our ability to adapt, to grow, to evolve. It is a confidence that is not affected by life's blows, because it has been forged in the fire of adversity. To rebuild confidence, we must begin by honestly observing the areas of our life where we have felt hurt, betrayed, or insufficient. This is neither an easy nor a quick process, because we have often buried those wounds under layers of distractions, denial, and frantic activity. But only by looking directly at those wounded parts of ourselves can we begin the healing process. Confidence cannot be forced or faked. It must be cultivated with love and patience, like a fragile plant that requires our most careful intentions. And in that cultivation process, we discover something surprising. Confidence is not a finite resource that is spent and disappears. It is an inexhaustible spring that arises from the deepest part of our being, if only we learn to access it. We often believe that we need certain external circumstances to feel secure, to feel valuable. But the truth is that authentic confidence does not depend on anything or anyone outside of us. It is an internal force that can be awakened at any time, if only we have the courage to look within ourselves and reclaim it as our own. Inner rebirth is a continuous process. It doesn't happen overnight or all at once. It's a series of small awakenings, moments where, step by step, we begin to trust again in our ability to navigate the turbulent waters of life. And with every step we take, with every act of courage, that confidence strengthens, expands, until it finally becomes an integral part of who we are. We no longer need to seek outside ourselves to feel secure, because we have found that security deep within our own being. By rebuilding confidence, we also learn to look at the world with new eyes. We no longer see failures as definitive condemnations, but as opportunities for growth. We no longer see betrayals as proof of our inadequacy, but as lessons that teach us to trust our intuition, our capacity for discernment. And we no longer see life as something we must control, but as a flow that we can learn to navigate with grace and serenity. This inner rebirth brings us back to our purest essence. It reminds us that ultimately, confidence is not something that can be gained or lost, but something that has always been within us, waiting to be rediscovered. It is a gift that belongs to us by right, because we are beings created to trust ourselves and in life. And when we finally awaken to that truth, we begin to walk through the world with a new lightness, with a new clarity, knowing that even if storms may come, we will always have the strength to overcome them. Inner rebirth is not a grandiose event, but a series of small moments in which we constantly choose to trust in our ability to heal, to learn, to move forward. Every day, with every choice we make, we are rebuilding that confidence, reaffirming our faith in ourselves, and allowing our light to shine more brightly, not despite our falls, but precisely because of them. Just as the artisan transforms the cracks of a broken vase into a golden work of art, we too transform our wounds into a source of strength and beauty. And in that process, we discover that inner rebirth is not just about restoring what has been lost, but about creating something new, something greater, truer, more aligned with the depth of who we truly are. This is the secret to rebuilding confidence. It is not a return to what once was, but an expansion into what we are destined to be. Chapter 8. The Power of Beliefs. Redefining Your Reality. Deep within the human soul lies an almost imperceptible power, yet one of such magnitude that it governs every aspect of our existence. Beliefs. They are invisible, subtle as the threads that weave destiny, yet their influence is inescapable. Our beliefs shape the way we see the world, dictate how we interpret the events of our life, and most importantly, delineate the boundaries of what we consider possible. And yet, most of us walk through life without questioning these foundations, without examining the bedrock upon which we have built our reality. Beliefs, those invisible truths we harbor deep within our minds, are the raw material of reality. Each of us inhabits a unique world, not because the laws of physics are different for each being, but because each mind is a universe in itself, with its own rules, its own horizons. What we believe with the force of conviction is what ultimately manifests in our lives. Thus, beliefs become the architects of our destiny, building or destroying, opening paths or raising barriers. But what happens when those beliefs don't serve us? When instead of opening us to new possibilities, they trap us in an invisible cage of limitations? What do we do when we discover that the barriers we believe to be insurmountable are nothing more than illusions created and maintained by our mind, by what we have accepted as truth without questioning it? The power of beliefs lies not only in their ability to shape external reality, but in our ability to redefine them, to free ourselves from the chains we have imposed upon ourselves. Redefining our reality is an act of courage, because it involves questioning what we have taken for granted. It requires an unwavering will to look within ourselves and recognize that many of the beliefs we have held for years have been the result of external influences. The voices of our childhood, the expectations of society, the fears inherited from past generations. These beliefs did not arise from our inner truth, but were imposed upon us, and as we grew, we accepted them without realizing their power to limit our potential. The process of redefining our reality begins with identifying these beliefs. It is not an easy process, because they are often so deeply rooted in our psyche that they seem to be part of our identity. We believe that the world is this way because it has always been this way, and we confuse our beliefs with reality itself. But when we begin to dig, when we dare to challenge those beliefs, something extraordinary begins to happen. The barriers dissolve, horizons expand, and we begin to glimpse a world larger, wider, and fuller of possibilities than we had ever imagined. Imagine for a moment that your life is like a vast garden, and that every belief you hold is a seed you have planted in that fertile ground. Some of those seeds have given rise to beautiful flowers, to strong trees that provide you with shade and sustenance. But other seeds have grown like weeds, stifling the growth of everything else, taking up space, preventing light from reaching the plants you truly want to cultivate. Redefining your reality is like pulling out those weeds, not with hatred or resentment, but with love and gratitude, knowing that they once served you but that now is the time to let them go to make room for new seeds, for new beliefs that will flourish with greater strength and beauty. This act of mental gardening is neither a quick nor a simple process. It requires time, patience, and an unwavering will to continue, even when the path becomes dark or uncertain. Because redefining your beliefs is, ultimately, redefining who you are. It is an act of recreation, of rebirth. It is looking at the vast horizon of possibilities and deciding with all the strength of your being what seeds you want to plant from now on, what beliefs you want to guide your life from this moment. And in this process, we realize something surprising. Our beliefs are not fixed, they are not carved in stone. They are malleable, flexible, and can be transformed at will. We are not condemned to live according to the limitations of the past. We are not bound by the stories others have told us. We have the power to choose at every moment what to believe, and in doing so, we have the power to change our reality. Redefining our reality is, in essence, an act of liberation. It is freeing ourselves from expectations, from fears, from the limitations we have accepted without questioning. It is remembering that we are the creators of our lives, that what we believe has the power to shape our world, and that by changing our beliefs, we also change our destiny. But this power is not something to be taken lightly, because with it comes great responsibility. The responsibility to be aware of our beliefs, to observe them carefully, to question them bravely, and to wisely choose what we want to continue holding and what we must release. It is a continuous process, an act of such discipline that it requires us to be constantly attentive to the thoughts we allow to dwell in our minds and to the beliefs we nourish with our focus. Beliefs are like lighthouses that guide our way through the darkness of the unknown. If our beliefs are limiting, then those lighthouses project a faint, weak light that barely allows us to see beyond our immediate step. But when our beliefs are expansive, when they are aligned with our true potential, those lighthouses illuminate vast landscapes of possibilities, open paths where we once saw walls, and allow us to walk with confidence towards a future that once seemed unattainable. This is the power of beliefs, the power to redefine your reality not from the outside, but from within. For the world is nothing more than a reflection of what we hold in our mind. Change what you believe and you will change what you see. Change what you see and you will change what you experience. And by changing what you experience, you will inevitably change who you are. Ultimately, the power of beliefs is the power of creation itself. It is the power to take the reins of your life and direct it where you wish to go, instead of letting the winds of circumstance toss you back and forth. It is the power to know with a deep and unwavering certainty that you have within you the ability to change any aspect of your reality that is not aligned with your deepest truth. And this power, this divine gift, is available to you at all times. You just need to open your eyes, look within yourself, and decide what you want to believe, because what you believe with all your heart is what will ultimately manifest in your life. Chapter 9. The Importance of Self-Love on the Path to Success. Deep within being, where the mind does not always have access and the soul whispers its eternal truths, lies a force that, though often forgotten, is essential in every step on the path to success: self-love. It is not the narcissistic love that seeks to be reflected in the eyes of others, nor is it the vanity that feeds on empty compliments. True self-love is a silent but powerful force that arises from the recognition of our own worth, an inner certainty that we are worthy not for what we do, but simply for who we are. The path to success, in its highest form, is not a race towards the accumulation of titles or wealth. It is a path of self-discovery, a journey towards inner mastery where at every turn we face our own shadows and gradually discover the light that has always been waiting to be revealed. On this journey, self-love acts as a beacon, an unwavering guide that sustains us in moments of doubt, reminding us of our intrinsic worth even when the outside world seems to darken. Self-love is not a selfish act or an escape into indulgence, but a form of reverence for life itself, for that divine breath that dwells within each of us. To recognize our dignity is to honor the spark of the eternal that shines within us. It is to embrace our humanity with all its ups and downs, its triumphs and failures, knowing that our worth is not conditioned by the results we achieve, but by our willingness to keep growing, to keep learning, to keep walking with integrity and love. In the vast landscape of success, we are often taught to look outward, to measure our progress based on external comparisons, to seek validation in applause and praise from others. But this pursuit is a mirage, a trap that distracts us from what truly matters. True success is not found in the accumulation of visible achievements, but in the ability to walk with authenticity, with a deep sense of self-respect, without the need for external approval. And it is here that self-love reveals its true power. When we truly love who we are, every step we take on the path to success becomes an expression of our inner truth. We no longer move driven by the anxiety to prove something to the world, but by the joy of being who we are, by the excitement of manifesting the greatness that lies within us in the world. Self-love gives us the freedom to create not from fear of failure, but from the certainty that, regardless of the outcome, we are complete and sufficient. This self-love, however, is not something that arises overnight. It is an art that must be cultivated, a relationship that we must build with ourselves with the same devotion and patience with which we would build a relationship with another loved one. We have often been conditioned to see our flaws and weaknesses, to measure ourselves against unattainable standards, and in that process, we have forgotten how to look at ourselves with compassionate eyes. But self-love invites us to change that narrative, to see our imperfections not as defects, but as opportunities to grow, as essential parts of the human being that we are. In this sense, self-love is the cornerstone of all lasting success. Without it, any external achievement feels empty, lacking substance, because we have placed our worth in the hands of external forces that can change over time. With self-love, every achievement feels like a natural extension of our inner fullness, like a manifestation of our ability to honor who we are in essence. We become conscious creators, not seeking to fill a void, but expressing from the abundance of our being. Self-love also acts as a protective shield in times of adversity, because the path to success is not free of challenges, unexpected obstacles, or falls that test our resilience. Without a strong sense of self-love, every stumble can feel like a sentence, like proof that we are not good enough, that we do not deserve to achieve our goals. But when our self-love is solid, every fall becomes a lesson, an opportunity to adjust our course, knowing that our worth is not diminished by failures, but on the contrary, grows with every challenge we overcome. It is in the most difficult moments, when doubts surround us, when the echoes of the external world make us falter, that self-love becomes our anchor. It reminds us that we are worthy, that we are capable, that we are sufficient, not because we have achieved some external goal, but because we are complete beings by nature, created to expand and flourish at our own pace in our own time. This self-love, when cultivated with dedication, also becomes the foundation of our relationships with others, because only when we love ourselves can we truly love others. Love teaches us to set healthy boundaries, to say no when necessary, to protect our energy, and to nourish ourselves in a way that allows us to give our best to the world without depleting ourselves. It teaches us that success should not be achieved at the expense of our inner peace, but as a natural consequence of living in alignment with our deepest truth. Ultimately, self-love liberates us. It frees us from the need to be perfect, from the pressure to meet external expectations, from the trap of seeking our worth externally. It brings us back to ourselves, to that pure and unyielding essence that has always been there, waiting to be recognized and honored. And in that recognition, we find a deep peace, a satisfaction that does not depend on external circumstances, but on the constant connection with our most authentic self. This is the secret of self-love on the path to success. It is not a destination we reach at the end of the journey, but the force that sustains us every step of the way. It is the fertile ground upon which our dreams grow. It is the source from which our creativity flows. It is the energy that fuels our perseverance. With self-love, success ceases to be a distant goal we must achieve and becomes a natural manifestation of who we are, an expression of our inner fullness that radiates outward, touching everything we do with the light of our truth. Chapter 10. Success as a reflection of service to others. In the vast theater of human existence, where every soul seeks its purpose, its place in the world, success has been transformed into an ideal pursued with fervor. However, we rarely stop to question the true meaning of that success. We rarely ask ourselves what value it holds if it is not rooted in service to others. For success, if it is merely a personal conquest, lacking connection with the collective well-being, fades like a withered flower, having left no lasting legacy. True success does not reside in the accumulation of wealth or in the conquest of individual goals, but in the impact our actions have on the world around us. It is an invisible dance between the self and the other, a continuous flow of energy in which what we give and what we receive intertwine in an infinite current of exchange. In this sense, success becomes a natural reflection of service, an inevitable consequence of our ability to offer the best of ourselves to those around us. The act of serving is not a task performed out of obligation or the need for recognition. True service arises from the heart, from a genuine desire to contribute to the well-being of others, from a deep understanding that our lives are intrinsically connected to the lives of all beings. In serving, we are not simply performing an act of generosity. We are recognizing our unity with the world. We are participating in the great fabric of existence where every action, no matter how small, has an echo that resonates throughout the universe. The success born of service is different from conventional success because it is not driven by ego or the need to accumulate for oneself. It is guided by love, by compassion, by the desire to uplift others alongside us. This type of success is not measured in material terms, but in the positive impact we leave on the world, in the lives we touch, in the souls we help to flourish. And in that process, we discover that success is not something we obtain, but something we create in conjunction with others. Imagine for a moment that life is like a vast garden, and each of us is a gardener in charge of caring for a small plot of that land. Success is not measured by how many flowers we have managed to cultivate in our plot, but by how many seeds we have planted in the gardens of those around us. These seeds can take the form of a kind word, an act of generosity, a gesture of support in a moment of difficulty. And although we may not always see the fruits of our actions, we can trust that every seed planted with love and sincerity will create a lasting impact, even long after we have left this world. Service to others, then, is not just an altruistic act. It is a source of personal satisfaction and fulfillment. By serving, we discover that we are not separating ourselves from our own path to success, but that we are accelerating that path in a way that transcends the purely individual. Because by helping others to grow, to prosper, to reach their maximum potential, we also uplift ourselves. It is in service that we find the true sense of purpose, where success becomes something greater than ourselves, something that endures beyond our individual lives. But service is not always easy. Sometimes it requires sacrifice, a willingness to put the needs of others above our own, to forego comfort for the well-being of those around us. This type of service is neither glamorous nor always recognized. But it is in those moments, when we serve from a place of humility and surrender, that we discover the true power of success, because success born of service is rooted in gratitude, in the recognition that every act of kindness, every gesture of compassion, connects us more deeply with our humanity, with the very essence of what it means to be truly successful. It is important to remember that service does not require grand heroic gestures. It is not necessary to change the entire world to succeed. Sometimes, the smallest acts of service have the deepest impacts. A smile at the right moment, a word of encouragement when all seems lost, a hand extended in a moment of need. These are the acts that build true success, because they not only transform the lives of others, but they transform ourselves. They remind us that success is not a destination we reach, but a path we walk every day with every choice we make. When we redefine success as a reflection of service to others, we begin to see life with new eyes. The focus is no longer on what we can gain, but on what we can give. And in that giving, we discover an inexhaustible source of joy, satisfaction, and purpose. Because every time we serve someone, every time we contribute to the well-being of another being, we are serving the entire world. We are participating in the infinite flow of giving and receiving that sustains all creation. This is true success. It is not an accumulation of goods or an ascent on the social ladder, but a reflection of our ability to love, to share, to serve. It is the realization that our greatest legacy will not be what we achieved for ourselves, but what we did for others. It is understanding that greatness is not measured by how high we climb, but by how many people we help to uplift alongside us. In the end, success is a dance between the self and the other, a constant collaboration between our personal evolution and the impact we have on the world. And in that dance, we discover that the more we give, the more we receive, because true success is not in what we accumulate for ourselves, but in what we share with the world. And by sharing our light, by serving others with all the love and compassion of our heart, we create a legacy that will endure long after we are gone, a legacy that will reflect the true measure of our success, the positive impact we leave on the lives of those who touched our path. Chapter 11. The Rebirth of Will, Forging a Path of Purpose. In the silence of dawn, when the world is still asleep and the shadows of night begin to yield to the first glimmers of light, there is a moment of absolute stillness, a deep breath that the entire universe seems to hold. In that invisible space, where everything seems suspended between past and future, the human will awakens, like a spark burning deep within the being, waiting to be fanned to ignite the fires of creation. Will, that untamed and eternal force, is the core of purpose. It is the flame that, once ignited, has the power to transform life itself. It is not the will as commonly understood, that which is exhausted by the fatigue of the body or the fluctuations of the mind. It is not the mere resolve that drives us to fulfill daily duties. It is something deeper, more primitive. It is the breath of the eternal that lies at the center of our being, the same energy that moves the stars in the firmament and that impels us to seek beyond what we see, to create beyond what we know, to be more than we have been. This will does not awaken with a simple desire for change. It is forged in the flames of adversity, in moments when we confront our deepest shadows and choose, again and again, to rise and keep going. The will that forges a path of purpose is a tested will, tempered by the fire of challenge, polished by the wind of discouragement, and strengthened by the storms that force us to delve deep within our being to find the power to continue. But what does it mean to forge a path of purpose? It is not simply choosing a goal and pursuing it with determination. It is listening to the inner voice that calls us to something greater, to a destiny that transcends our own needs and desires. It is being willing to walk unknown paths, to face the uncertainties of the future with the faith that, even if the path is not always clear, the will always lead us to where we are meant to be. On this journey, will is not a rigid or implacable force, but a fluid energy that adapts and transforms according to circumstances. It is not a sword that cuts mercilessly, but a river that flows steadily, carving its own course through the rocks and obstacles it encounters along the way. This will does not break before difficulties, because it knows that every challenge is an opportunity to delve deeper into its essence, to strengthen, to grow. The will that awakens in a human being in search of their purpose is neither blind nor impulsive. It is a will guided by the wisdom of the heart, a will that knows when to move forward with force and when to retreat with patience. It knows that purpose is not always revealed immediately, but unfolds slowly, like a flower opening to the sunlight. And as that flower opens, as purpose reveals itself, the will remains constant, sustaining us in moments of doubt, reminding us that our path is unique and that we must walk it with integrity and love. To forge a path of purpose, the will must be aligned with the heart, with that inner wisdom that transcends intellect and words. For purpose is not something found outside of us, it is something that emerges from within, something we have carried with us from the beginning, waiting for the right moment to flourish. And will, when in harmony with that inner wisdom, becomes the tool that allows us to manifest that purpose in the world. This process of manifestation is not linear. Sometimes we find ourselves at crossroads where our will seems to vanish, where purpose clouds over and doubt envelopes us like a thick fog. But it is precisely in those moments, when the path seems darkest, that the will shows its true power, not as a force that pushes us forward without reflection, but as an inner light that guides us through the darkness, reminding us that even in the most difficult moments there is always a direction, there is always a step we can take. Forging a path of purpose is an act of conscious creation. It is not a passive process where we simply follow what others tell us or do what is expected of us. It is an act of active will where we take the reins of our destiny, where we decide that our life will not be defined by external circumstances, but by the inner strength we carry within. It is a declaration of spiritual independence, an affirmation that no matter what happens in the external world, we will always have the power to choose how we respond, how we move forward, how we create our reality. And in that creation process, we discover something profound. Purpose is not a destination we reach at the end of the road. It is not an endpoint where everything is resolved and we have finally arrived. Purpose is the path itself. It is every step we take with intention, with love, with integrity. It is the way we live our lives day by day, the way we choose to show our will in the world, the way we commit to our own evolution and to the service of others. This is the rebirth of will, a deep awakening of our ability to create not from ego, but from the soul. It is a call to remember that we are powerful beings, not because we can control the external world, but because we have the power to choose our response to it. It is an invitation to live with purpose, not as a goal we must achieve, but as a way of being, a way of walking through the world with the certainty that every step, every choice, every action we take has a profound meaning. The rebirth of will is, ultimately, a rebirth of consciousness. It is a recognition that we are not here by chance, but that each of us has a role to play, a purpose to fulfill. And although that purpose may change and evolve over time, the will that drives us towards it will always be present, always ready to guide us, always available to those who choose to listen and follow its call. In this rebirth, we discover that true strength lies not in imposition or domination, but in alignment with our inner truth. Will, when in harmony with the heart, becomes an unstoppable force, a current of creation that flows through us and inevitably leads us to the manifestation of our highest purpose. And by walking that path, we discover that success is not measured in external terms, but in the depth of our commitment to our own truth, to our own will, to the purpose we have chosen to embody in the world. Chapter 12. The Wisdom of Silence. Finding Truth in Inner Stillness. In the vast and endless flow of life, where the noise and bustle of the external world always seem to claim us, there exists a sacred space that few dare to explore: silence. It is not the mere cessation of sound or the absence of words, but a deeper, more primal silence that dwells in the heart of being and that, like a hidden spring, waits to be discovered by those who seek something beyond the visible, something beyond the material. In that silence resides the most ancient wisdom and the purest knowledge, a knowledge that is not found in books or external teachings, but in the most intimate part of our being. Silence has been, since time immemorial, the refuge of the wise, the inner temple to which they retreat when the voices of the world become too loud, when chaos and confusion threaten to cloud the clarity of the mind. It is in silence that we find naked truth, without embellishments or interpretations, the truth that is not subject to opinion or the changing tides of society. In stillness, everything is revealed as it is, without the distortion of desires or fears, without the shadows cast by expectations or judgments. But this silence is not easy to find in a world that constantly pushes us to be in motion, to produce, to demonstrate. Stillness can seem like an unnecessary luxury or even a waste of time. We have become so accustomed to noise that the mere thought of remaining in silence terrifies us, as if in that void we could get lost or, worse still, find ourselves as we truly are, without the masks we have learned to wear. And yet, it is precisely in that encounter with ourselves, in the nakedness of our own soul, that the transformative power of silence resides. Silence is not simply a pause between words. It is a portal to a deeper dimension of consciousness. When we immerse ourselves in it, we begin to see beyond the illusions of the external world, beyond the dramas we have created in our mind. In silence, we realize that many of the struggles we face are nothing more than ghosts created by our own perception, that the suffering we experience comes from resistance to what is, and that by releasing that resistance, we find a peace that transcends all circumstances. Finding truth in inner stillness is an act of courage, because it requires us to let go of the distractions we have used to avoid facing our own essence. It requires us to shed all the layers we have built around ourselves and dare to listen to the voice of our soul when everything else has been silenced. It is in that state of vulnerability, in that total openness, that we discover the true strength of being. Silence teaches us that wisdom is not something we acquire from outside, but something we awaken from within. We do not need to seek answers in the voices of others, because all the answers we need are already within us, waiting to be heard in the stillness of our being. But to hear those answers, we must learn to be present with ourselves, without judgment, without haste, without the need to fill the void with words or actions. We must learn to trust the process of silence, in its ability to reveal to us what we could not see before. As we delve deeper into silence, we begin to see that many of the questions that once tormented us begin to fade, not because they have been answered directly, but because in the space of silence, we realize that they were not real questions in the first place, but concerns created by the mind to distract us from what truly matters. In silence, we see that what we truly seek are not intellectual answers, but a deeper connection with our own essence, a connection that transcends words and concepts. This is the gift of silence. It returns us to ourselves, to that inner space where truth has always been present, but which we have covered with layers of noise, doubts, fears. It shows us that we do not need to search outside ourselves to find what is already within, that we do not need to run in search of something that has never truly been lost. Only in stillness can we see clearly, because it is only in stillness that the waters of the mind calm down enough to reflect the truth as it is. But silence is not a state we should only achieve in moments of retreat or meditation. It is a quality we can carry with us throughout our daily lives, a way of being in the world without being dragged away by the noise and confusion around us. Inner silence is a refuge to which we can always return, even in the midst of chaos, a source of clarity and peace that is always available to us, if only we learn to listen. By cultivating this relationship with silence, we begin to see the world differently. We no longer feel overwhelmed by external demands, because we have found a center of peace within ourselves that nothing and no one can disturb. Success then ceases to be a race towards an external goal and becomes an expression of our inner stillness, a natural manifestation of the truth we have discovered in silence. Ultimately, silence is the language of the soul, the way the deepest truth communicates with us. And when we learn to listen to that language, we discover that everything we need to know is already within us, waiting to be revealed in the stillness of being. This is the true wisdom of silence. It shows us that the purpose of life is not to find answers, but to remember who we truly are deep within our being. This final chapter, then, is not an end in itself, but an invitation to continue exploring the transformative power of silence in every aspect of our lives, because in silence we find not only truth, but also the freedom, peace, and clarity that allow us to live with purpose, with love, and with a deeper understanding of our own essence. And in that understanding, we discover that success is not something we achieve, but something that naturally emerges when we are in tune with the silence of our being. Chapter 13: The Alchemy of Time, Forging Wisdom in Every Life Cycle. Time, that relentless river that flows ceaselessly, is often seen as an enemy that steals our days, pushing us forward without respite, leaving behind moments that can never be recovered. However, there is a deeper truth hidden in the incessant rhythm of time. It is not an adversary from which we must flee, but a powerful ally that, if understood, can become the crucible where true wisdom is forged. The alchemy of time teaches us that every moment, every life cycle, contains within itself the seed of a lesson, the possibility of a transformation, the birth of a new way of being. Time not only measures our existence on this plane, but also acts as a silent teacher, one who reveals its lessons not immediately, but in the patient repetition of experiences and challenges. With each life cycle we go through, be it a day, a season, or a longer stage of our existence, time offers us the opportunity to see with greater clarity, to reflect on our past choices, and to learn to walk with more awareness towards the future. But this learning does not happen automatically. It requires our willingness to observe, to listen, to recognize the hidden value in every moment. The true alchemy of time lies in our ability to transform it into something more than a succession of events. Every moment has the potential to become a philosopher's stone that transmutes ordinary experience into wisdom, into deep knowledge, into an expansion of our understanding of the world and ourselves. But for this to happen, we must learn to be present with time, not to allow it to escape us amidst the distractions and haste of modern life. We must learn to be still in the midst of the flow of time, like a firm tree in the middle of a river, absorbing every drop of experience and allowing it to nourish us from within. Time, in its constant movement, reminds us of the impermanence of all things. Moments of joy and triumph pass, as do those of sadness and difficulty. But it is precisely in that impermanence where its greatest lesson lies, the understanding that every life cycle is a unique and unrepeatable opportunity to grow, to learn, to evolve. The alchemy of time invites us not to cling to what was or what will be, but to be fully present in what is, to live each cycle with awareness, knowing that in each of them there is a precious teaching waiting to be discovered. In this process of alchemy, time becomes our ally in the creation of a meaningful life. We no longer see it as a measure that limits or pressures us, but as a tool that helps us refine our essence, eliminate the impurities of our beliefs and behaviors, and reveal the true purity of our being. With every turn of the clock, with every change of season, time offers us the possibility of rebirth, of leaving behind what no longer serves us and embracing what will allow us to move towards a higher version of ourselves. But to participate in this alchemy of time, we must be willing to let go of the need for control. We cannot force time, we cannot rush its lessons or delay its effects. We can only learn to flow with it, to trust that each cycle unfolds exactly as it should, at the precise moment to offer us the lessons we need in our evolution. By ceasing to resist time, by ceasing to see it as an enemy that pushes us towards death, we begin to see it as a companion on our journey towards inner mastery, a companion who guides us wisely towards the realization of our deepest purpose. Time, in its purest essence, is not linear. It is not a straight line that extends from birth to death, but a continuous circle, a spiral in which each cycle repeats, but always at a deeper, more expanded level. What we live today is not simply a repetition of what we have lived before, but an opportunity to see the same experiences from a new perspective, to face the same challenges with greater understanding, greater wisdom. The alchemy of time allows us to transform the past, not by changing what happened, but by changing how we understand it, how we integrate it into our consciousness. As we delve deeper into this understanding, we begin to see that time does not steal anything from us, it only gives us. It gives us the opportunity to create, to learn, to love, to serve. It gives us the possibility to redeem ourselves, to correct our mistakes, to heal our wounds. Every cycle that time offers us is a new page in the book of our lives, a page that we can fill with the lessons we have learned, with the decisions we make with more wisdom, with the actions that reflect our inner evolution. The true alchemy of time is not simply to transform our individual experiences, but to transform our relationship with life itself. By learning to flow with time, by embracing each cycle as an opportunity for growth and transformation, we discover that time no longer imprisons us. Instead of being slaves to the clock, we become alchemists of time, using every moment, every cycle to forge the life we truly wish to live. And in that process, we discover that time is truly a blessing, a precious gift that allows us to live fully with purpose and with a deep understanding of what truly matters. Ultimately, the alchemy of time teaches us to live with gratitude. It teaches us to appreciate every moment, not because it is perfect, but because it is unique. It teaches us to see every life cycle as an opportunity to grow in wisdom, in compassion, in love. And when we learn to live this way, we discover that time is not something to fear, but something to honor, because it is through it that we forge our own evolution, that we create our own story, that we leave our own legacy in the world. This final chapter is not a closure, but an opening to a new understanding of time and its role in our lives. It is an invitation to consciously participate in the alchemy of time, to see every life cycle as an opportunity to transform ourselves, to elevate ourselves, to create a life that reflects our true essence. And in that creation, we discover that time is not just a measure of our existence, but the crucible in which our true wisdom, our true greatness, our true purpose is forged. Chapter 14, Awakening of the Soul, the Unbreakable Call Towards the Unknown. Deep within our being, where the shadows of the past meet the faint light of the future, lies a persistent whisper that never ceases, though at times it may seem silenced by the noise of the world. It is the call of the soul, an unbreakable voice that invites us, again and again, to rise from the ashes of our falls and walk towards the unknown, towards territories we have not yet explored. This call is not gentle or complacent. It is a silent cry that pierces through the layers of our mind, reminding us that we are not here to simply exist, but to fully awaken to who we are. The awakening of the soul is not a simple metaphor, nor is it a concept that can be understood through words alone. It is a profound and transformative event that shakes us from the foundations of our being, tearing down the structures we have built around ourselves to protect us from fear and uncertainty. It is like the dawn after a long night, when light begins to filter through the cracks of the horizon and, suddenly, everything that was in shadow is illuminated with a new and powerful clarity. But awakening is not an easy process. It requires immense courage to face the parts of ourselves we have kept hidden, the wounds we have preferred not to look at, the truths we have avoided recognizing. It is an act of bravery that takes us beyond our comfort zones, beyond the securities we have built, and pushes us towards the vastness of the unknown, where our certainties crumble and our defenses dissolve into pure consciousness. On this journey to the unknown, there are no maps to guide us, no marked paths we can follow. Every step is a new creation, an act of faith in ourselves, in our ability to navigate the turbulent waters of life without sinking into fear or despair. The soul, in its awakening, does not seek definitive answers. It seeks experience, it seeks expansion, it seeks growth. It knows that the true purpose is not to find a safe place to settle, but to continue exploring, always moving, always forward, towards what has not yet been revealed. This call to the unknown, though seemingly terrifying, is in reality an invitation to remember who we are in essence. It reminds us that we are infinite beings, capable of adapting, transforming, creating new realities out of chaos. The awakening of the soul is not a destination we reach, but a continuous process of expansion, a constant opening to new possibilities, to new ways of being. And in that process, we discover that we are not alone on our journey, but a part of a much larger cosmic dance, a dance in which every being, every experience, every challenge plays a crucial role in our growth. Awakening is not a single event that happens only once in a lifetime. It is a series of awakenings, a series of moments when the light becomes more intense, brighter, revealing new layers of truth, new dimensions of our being. Each awakening takes us deeper into our consciousness, beyond the limits we had imposed on ourselves, and invites us to see the world with new eyes, with a new perspective. However, this awakening is not always gentle or pleasant. It often comes with a sense of loss, of bewilderment, as if everything we once considered true and safe crumbled before our eyes. It is in those moments, when the ground seems to disappear beneath our feet, that the soul reminds us that true awakening is not about finding a new place to cling to, but about learning to walk with confidence in uncertainty, knowing that every step brings us closer to our deepest truth. The soul, in its awakening, shows us that we do not need external answers to feel complete. We do not need the approval or validation of others to know who we are. Everything we need is already within us, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be awakened. And it is in stillness, in the attentive listening of our own being, that we begin to hear that call, that whisper that has been guiding us all along, even when we were not aware of its presence. The call of the soul invites us to let go of external expectations, to release imposed beliefs, and to trust our own inner wisdom. It invites us to remember that we are the creators of our reality, that we have the power to choose in every moment how we respond to life, how we relate to the challenges that come our way. The awakening of the soul is ultimately a return to ourselves, to that part of us that has always known the truth, but which we have ignored in favor of the distractions and noises of the external world. This awakening is also an act of love, not only towards ourselves, but towards the world around us. Because when we awaken to our own truth, when we begin to live from that place of authenticity and inner power, we radiate that light to others. We become beacons of consciousness, living examples of what it means to live with purpose, integrity, and love. And in that process, we help to awaken others, not through our words, but through our presence, our energy, the way we walk through the world. The awakening of the soul, then, is an unbreakable call towards the unknown, an invitation to explore the mysteries of life with an open heart and an awakened mind. It is not an easy path, but it is a path full of purpose, meaning, and growth. And on that path, we discover that the unknown is not something to fear, but something to embrace, because it is in the unknown where the true magic of life resides, where the greatest abilities and most transformative opportunities are found. Each awakening brings us closer to our essence, closer to the realization of our purpose in this life. And although the path may be uncertain, we can trust that the soul will always guide us, will always lead us to where we need to be, if only we learn to listen, to trust, and to follow its call towards the unknown, towards the infinite, towards the truth that has always been waiting to be revealed within ourselves. Epilogue: The silent echo of inner mastery. In the final moments, when the echo of our words fades and the lights of our conquests begin to dim, we are left alone with the essence of what we have been, with the silent reflection of our inner mastery. This journey, which at its beginning seemed to be an outward one, towards the tangible world of achievements and knowledge, finally reveals its true nature, a journey inward, to the deepest part of our being, where true greatness resides. Throughout life cycles, we have struggled, fallen, and been reborn. We have faced shadows and savored victories, only to realize that success is not a trophy to be placed on a shelf, but a state of being that we cultivate in every moment. True success is not measured by the external marks we leave, but by the invisible imprint we have left on the hearts of those who crossed our path and, even more, by the transformation we have allowed within ourselves. In this final space, where the noise of the external world can no longer distract or entice us, silence becomes our most faithful companion. It is in this silence that the soft echo of mastery is heard, that voice that whispers to us that everything we have sought has always been present within us. Every challenge we faced, every lesson we learned, brought us closer to this moment of profound understanding, where we realized that the true purpose of life was not to accumulate, but to remember, not to conquer, but to awaken. Inner mastery is not about perfection, but about integration. It is about accepting all parts of ourselves, the light and the shadow, the strength and the vulnerability, and embracing them as a whole. It is understanding that we do not need to be more than we already are, that in our imperfect humanity resides a beauty and wisdom that transcend the limitations of time and space. Mastery is not about reaching a final state of enlightenment, but about living each day with awareness, with presence, with love. In this epilogue, which is not an end but a new beginning, we realize that the journey has never been linear or followed the expectations we once had. It has been a spiral journey that has led us back to ourselves, but with a broader perspective, with a deeper understanding of who we are and the role we play in this vast tapestry of existence. And now, with eyes opened by accumulated wisdom, we walk with a new lightness, knowing that true success is simply being. The external voices that once guided or confused us fade in this final space, leaving us with the clarity of our own inner voice, that voice that has always been there, even when the world seemed too noisy to hear it. Now it rises with strength and certainty, speaks to us of love, peace, purpose. It reminds us that although the journey may have been long and arduous, every step has been worth it, because it has led us here, to this moment of profound stillness where all we need is simply to be. Inner mastery, then, is not something that is achieved, but something that is discovered. It is the revelation of our purest essence, which has been hidden under layers of conditioning, fear, and external expectations. It is the return home, to that inner home that never left, that has always been waiting for us, waiting for the moment when we are ready to see it for what it truly is, the safe haven where our true strength resides. And so, as the silent echo of mastery resonates within us, we realize that the journey continues, but no longer with the anxiety of reaching somewhere, but with the peace of knowing that we are already complete. We walk forward, not in search of something more, but in a dance with life itself, knowing that with every step we are simply expressing what we already are, beings full of love, wisdom, and an inner mastery that has always been ours since the beginning of time. This is the final echo of our journey, but it is not the end. It is the beginning of a new relationship with life, a relationship based on freedom, presence, and truth. And in that sacred space, in that infinite stillness, we discover that mastery is not an achievement to be celebrated, but a state of being lived moment by moment, in every breath, in every glance, in every beat of our heart.